2,000 years ago, in the heart of the ancient Near East, a figure emerged whose life and teachings would forever alter the course of human history. This is not the story of an earlier Messiah, the teacher of righteousness in the Dead Sea Scrolls, who was said to fulfill the exact same scriptural passages of prophecy, astoundingly enough, which the Gospels use for Jesus 100 years earlier than when Jesus lived, concerning his life and activities. We focus for now on Jesus of Nazareth, not just as a religious icon, but as a pivotal figure in human history. We seek not that which only increases faith-promoting information, or more puzzling still, a faithful analysis, whatever that might mean, but the visceral reality underlying and predating later theological vanilla added to Jesus from those church historians removed by centuries from Jesus' day. Today, we peel back the layers of myth and legend to explore the historical Jesus through the lens of modern scholarship and archaeology. Jesus was no Mark Twain, yet he said and taught things that jarred people, like Twain was known for. On one occasion, Twain wittily noted, "When one reads Bibles, one is less surprised at what the deity knows than at what he doesn't know." Jesus likewise shocked his audiences at times with such statements as, "It is not what goes into your mouth that defiles you, but what comes out of your mouth." Jesus was said to have been born of a virgin in Bethlehem, which Matthew conveniently chose in his story in order to be seen as a fulfillment of a supposed ancient prophecy. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, and he preached throughout Judea under the shadow of the Roman Empire. This period was marked by political tension and a yearning for messianic deliverance from among the Jews. This yearning had been building for the last few hundred years and was at fever pitch in the Dead Sea Scrolls with their two messiahs. It is against this backdrop that Jesus' message spread, a message that promised not just spiritual salvation, but also a radical social upheaval, which the Gospel authors in the New Testament called the Kingdom of God. This messianic tension at this time is reflected in the several different messianic characters which arose up from the time Jesus was born to the temple's destruction in 70 AD by Titus, from Josephus, the Jewish historian, who may have actually mentioned Jesus, John the Baptist, and Jesus' brother James. Now, other gods in ancient history and mythology were thought to have been born of a virgin as well, as the early church fathers well knew and said so. Classical and biblical scholar Dennis R. MacDonald noted how Justin Martyr recognized similarities between the birth of Jesus and those of Greek superheroes. He thought that when Christians say Jesus is the first offspring of God, they were introducing nothing new beyond the sons of Zeus, so called by you, in his first apology. The announcement of the birth of Jesus is very similar and is structured on the same kind of announcement made of the demigod Aeneas. A century after Justin, Origen of Alexandria likewise compared the birth of Jesus with other superheroes. It is not out of place with respect to the Greeks to refer as well to Greek stories, so that we Christians seem not to be the only ones to refer to such an amazing tale. But these Greek stories actually are myths that move people to invent such an opinion about a man whom we consider as possessing wisdom and power greater than that of the masses, those who were greater than mere human, Origen was right about why people invented stories about demigods, but he refused to admit that the authors of the Gospels did the same thing for Jesus. The concept of a virgin birth is found in various mythologies around the world, beyond the well-known story of Jesus Christ in Christianity. Here are a few examples of other deities or legendary figures said to have been born a virgin. Mithras. In ancient Persian mythology, Mithras was said to have been born from a rock, and not from a human mother at all, which some interpret as a type of miraculous virgin birth. Mithras became very popular in the Roman world. Perseus. In Greek mythology, Perseus's mother Danae was a virgin impregnated by Zeus in the form of a golden shower. Zeus's divine influence allowed Perseus to be conceived without Danae losing her virginity in the traditional sense. Horus. In Egyptian mythology, Horus is sometimes said to have been conceived by Isis, with Horus after Osiris's death, or through magical means. As Osiris was dismembered at the time, Isis conceived Horus. Isis herself, however, was not always considered a virgin in these stories. Again, we have Zoroaster. According to some versions of Zoroaster's birth in Zoroastrianism, his mother conceived him by a shaft of light, or through divine intervention maintaining her virginity. And finally, Attis. In some versions of the myth, Attis, a deity of life and resurrection in Phrygian and Greek mythology, was born from the virgin Nana, who conceived him by touching a fruit or a tree, depending on the version of the myth. These stories reflect a theme where miraculous births, often through divine or supernatural intervention, serve to set the hero or god apart from ordinary mortals right from their inception. The motif underscores their unique status and often predestined roles in their respective mythological narratives. The historical Jesus scholars Gerd Thiessen and Annette Mertz have noted how two of the four Gospels of the New Testament utilized proof texts of Old Testament Jewish scriptures in order to match them to the desired image of Jesus some people, most especially the authors of Matthew and Luke, wanted Jesus to appear like. The virgin birth is developed from Isaiah 7:14 in the Greek Septuagint, and the birth in Bethlehem is taken from Micah 5:1-3. This is their creating the Jesus birth narrative we read in the Gospels, not a recaption of an historical event. Jesus' teachings were revolutionary. He challenged the social norms, advocating love for enemies and forgiveness, and a new, odd interpretation of the Sabbath that was revolutionary, placing the needs of the poor and marginalized above the wealthy and powerful. Such teachings were not just spiritually daring, they were politically subversive, challenging both Roman authorities and Jewish religious leaders. His actions spoke as loudly as his words. Jesus' cleansing of the temple and his public criticisms were of a revolution that won him followers among the masses and enemies among the elites. Scholars like E.P. Sanders and Reza Aslan have highlighted how these acts could be seen not just as religious statements, but as political revolutionary provocations that would ultimately lead to his crucifixion. Did Jesus see himself as the fulfiller of ancient Jewish scriptures? The scholarship is still discussing this, both pro and con. Crucifixion was a Roman method of public execution, reserved for slaves, criminals, and rebels, not messiahs. Jesus' execution under Pontius Pilate points to the perceived threat he posed to the Roman order. This was a stark message to any who would challenge Rome's authority, the only concern Rome had, and Rome never lost. In the centuries that followed, the figure of Jesus was both mystified and institutionalized. The Council of Nicaea, the formation of the New Testament, these were moments when divine and historical narratives intertwined and were created. Yet as scholars like Bart D. Ehrman, Dale Allison Jr., John Dominique Crossan, and others have argued, the historical Jesus might have been quite different from the Christ of faith. Today, the quest for the historical Jesus continues to fascinate scholars and believers alike and puzzle so many people with new information and interpretation. New archaeological digs in Nazareth and Bethlehem, along with historical critiques such as analysis from James Tabor and many others, offer new insights into the life of a man who walked the roads of Judea, challenged both of his followers and foes, not as a gentle Messiah, but as a man on a mission to defeat the Roman Empire. He was a rebellious character, not a mild, lamb-holding Messiah. Jesus of Nazareth, a man who lived in a time of turmoil, whose life has been viewed through many lenses, some of which cloud, others which sharpen the focus and enlighten. Whether as a spiritual leader, a social reformer, or a revolutionary and rebel against Rome, his story compels us to ask deeper questions about faith, history, and the human condition. Join us as we continue to explore the complex, intriguing, and profoundly impactful legacy of the historical Jesus.